This is The Party with Serene and Pearl. Get it right, Poddy.
We are so excited today, everybody, because for months we have tried to get this woman on our podcast, and it happened.
And when it happened, we were like, all our Christmases have come at once.
Yeah.
We could have done cartwheels on the lawn.
We could have, because Laura Doyle is here today, and I cannot tell you what an impact you have had upon our lives, Laura. You don't know, but you should, and we want to let you know, and we want you to have that impact.
Pearl always gives me the books that she reads, and she's like, okay, I've read this. You read it. It blessed my life. But she said, I read this awesome book, The Empowered Wife. I'm like, okay, well, give it to me like you do all the rest of your books. She goes, no way. You could buy your own copy. I need to keep this one by my bedside table because it's one that I have to reread.
Yeah, but we should first of all say hello
Hello.
and
Hi,
huge,
Pearl.
huge welcome.
Hi,
Huge welcome.
Suri.
Yes.
Oh,
Hello.
thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, be on the potty.
Oh yeah.
This is great.
We want to read your illustrious bio and then dig deep. We have so many questions for you. I do. Serene, I'm just going to be like,
Oh, look at this.
we're going to be fighting. We should have 3 hours, not one, but we will do our best because what you bring to women and to marriages and what you have brought helped me in my marriage is beyond words. And we want you today, hopefully we won't talk too much, give you the mic, to be able to have that impact today and reach so many hundreds of thousands of women. Serene, read the bio, then we'll dig in.
Okay. New York Times bestselling author Laura Doyle was the perfect wife until she actually got married. I love that line. When she told her husband how to be tidier, more romantic, and more ambitious, he avoided her. So she dragged him to marriage counseling and nearly divorced him. In desperation, she asked happily married women for their secrets. And that's when she got her miracle. The man who wooed her returned. Laura's books have been translated into 19 languages and 30 countries and started a worldwide movement of women who practice the 6 intimacy skills. She founded an international relationship coach training school, is the star of Empowered Wives on Amazon Prime, and the host of the Empowered Wife podcast, which I love. I'm a binge listener. Laura has appeared on a bunch of big shows. We could name them all, but just know she's a big deal. And the thing she's most proud of, though, and I love this, is her gratifying 35-year marriage with her husband, hilarious husband, John. And her number one goal is, and it's ambitious, and I love it, to end global divorce.
So Laura, your story, a little bit of it came out in that bio, but you know, when you read The Empowered Wife, and we want everybody to read it, Serene and I were just saying today, actually, it should be a required read once a month because we get off track.
Especially at the end of the month. Yes.
But
the Bible and Empowered Wife, they're like my 2 books on my bedside table.
You tell the story, and I love it because you're so self-depreciating. That's what I love about you. You do not come across as wagging a finger and putting women down. You just share your story. And your story that you share in the book was you actually figured you married the wrong person.
I totally did. Yeah. I mean, he was such a loser, you guys. I was like, he didn't seem like it when I married him, but then after we were married, I couldn't get him to take out the trash. He didn't want to spend any time with me. He wasn't even interested to make love to me, even though, all men want that, right? And I couldn't get him to do any of the things that I wanted. And I just didn't think he was ambitious enough. So I was trying to help him. I was going to show him how he could be so much more ambitious and more romantic and help me clean up more. And as you can already imagine, it didn't go over well at all. But I knew what we should do because we could barely have a conversation without having a fight. Or we'd have these cold wars that would last for days with no talking, just a lot of tension. And so, of course, everyone knows you should go to marriage counseling if that happens. And so I said, we're going to marriage counseling. Mainly, I meant like, we need a counselor to fix you because I'm already such a good wife. And he wasn't that excited to go, but he finally agreed. I remember we were having a big fight in the car on the way to Disneyland, and he was like, fine, we'll go to marriage counseling. And I was like, I'll let him have the last word. And we spent like over a year in marriage counseling. and things were not getting better. It wasn't helping. I remember being on her gray couch and thinking, this is definitely hopeless. I'm not ever going to feel loved in this marriage. I'm either going to spend the rest of my life in a loveless marriage or else we have to get divorced. And I knew in that moment that I would have to get divorced. So I decided I would do that. But there was just one problem, and that was that I was too embarrassed. I'd had the family out for a big wedding not that long ago, not that many years before, and I just felt too humiliated. They would know that I had failed. We had failed. So in my desperation, I just decided I would ask women who had happy marriages and had been married for at least 15 years. That was my criteria because that seemed like an eternity. 15 years. Like, how does anyone stay married for that long? And they just so surprised me. I didn't even understand what they were saying at first. I remember one woman saying, "Oh, I try not to criticize my husband, no matter how much it seems like he deserves it." And I was like, have you got anything else? Because I didn't really, I couldn't even see myself doing that. Like, how do you do that? And my parents are divorced, so I think I had been following a failed recipe and I was about to get the same results. But in my desperation, I decided to experiment with their crazy ideas. And I remember it was not that long after that that I came through the door and my husband saw me and his face lit up. He was happy to see me again.
Wow.
And that had been gone. And so I knew, oh, something's working. There's hope. There's
Yeah.
possibility here. And so I was
You doing
thrilled
it
that
too.
I finally
I was about to
right,
deny
finally
it. I'm
knew.
like, no.
Yeah, right, right. I know it still touches me every time too, because I almost threw away the man of my dreams that I have now. And I thought that it was very exciting because I thought, oh, now I know what to do. I know what to do to have a good marriage. And now all I have to do is do it. And I did do it for a little while. And then I didn't. And then I
Mm.
thought, oh, we'll never have those big fights in the car again. And then we did, right? We did have a horrible fight in the car. And I was so discouraged because I thought, oh, how tragic is this now? I know what to do and I am not doing it. And now my marriage is still in the ditch. Or it's at least falling into the ditch pretty regularly still. So I got the idea that I was going to recruit some of my girlfriends that were also complaining about their marriages. And I was going to tell them all these things that they should do with the hopes that it would help me be able to do it too. And that worked. I had a little support group in my house of five, it was just five of us, and they would try things and they would report miracles. They would say, "Oh my gosh, my husband won the sales contest at work. He took me on the most romantic getaway of our lives." And they couldn't believe it. And this other woman said, "You guys aren't going to think this is that big, but my husband got up and painted the family room. We've been fighting for months about I want him to paint the family room. And he just got up and did it. He did it with a smile." She's like, "This is a miracle." And so we knew we were onto something. And one of them said, "Can you write down what we're doing for my cousin in Florida?" And we're in California. And I said, "Sure, I could do that." And so that became my first book, which
Oh, I love
became
that.
a New York Times bestseller and was published in all those languages and
That's the
became
surrendered wife. Is that the
Yeah,
surrendered
that's
wife?
the
that's
I love
right.
surrender.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys are true fans, you know the
Yeah.
Hmm.
backstory. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the
I
surrender
mean,
wife, which
I'm not single, and I even ordered you a surrendered single. I want to read everything you put out because it's encouraging. And
You
like
were
you
crying a little
said,
bit and you got mascara on that side.
oh,
And
I
as a
do.
sister, I have to tell you when you're
Yeah,
something wrong
please,
with your
please
face.
do. Is it gone?
Yeah, it's a little
And
bit
now I've
gone.
got mascara in my eye. Um,
Yeah.
but we relate to kind of how that movement happened. I mean, that's how our first book became a bestseller. We certainly didn't push it. It was just organic.
Yeah.
Woman being changed and experiencing these things and then telling other women.
It's
And
powerful.
and that's how this huge movement has happened, right? How many would you say millions of marriages have been restored when you think about the gravity of that, Laura?
yeah, it's incredible. It is still so just amazing to me. I get, letters from Japan and from Egypt
Oh,
and, from people that speak languages. I only speak English. So
Yeah.
it's just been astounding and so nurturing and encouraging for me because to this day, all these years later, 25 years later, I still need the community of women as much as anybody
Mm.
to keep my marriage shiny and amazing. It is shiny and amazing, but I notice when I leave the conversation, that like the kind of conversation we're having, it doesn't stay as shiny and amazing. Like I go
Oh,
back to, yeah,
I've
controlling Laura.
experienced that in my life. Like, read your book, convert. Like,
Yeah.
now I was the shiniest of wives, right? I knew better. I had the 6 intimacy skills down. And
Yes.
in my
Yes.
pride, I turn around and I'm like, girl, I'm like the most unempowered woman there is, because I'm just back into my old self. So that's why she wouldn't give me her book. And that's why I don't really give mine away. I might borrow it for a few days, but I call, like, can I have the book back, please? Because it has to be, you got to re-get it in your soul.
I have two questions, Laura. For those who are listening that may be new to what you're saying here and to your principles, what does being an empowered wife mean? I mean, what in a nutshell, what does it mean?
Well, I guess for me, it means, um, yeah, that is a great question. So I think for me, it means that like I felt so stuck and so hopeless waiting for my husband to change so that I could finally be happy in the old days. And today I have so much confidence and faith in myself. I'm not gonna abandon myself, and I can make myself happy. And when I do, my husband just can't wait to pile on. He's that guy that I'm just walking in the hall and he's grabbing me at the waist and pulling me into to have a kiss, and or I'll be brushing crumbs off the counter and he's like, um, wait, don't move. He gets out his phone. He has to take my picture like I'm the supermodel that he's been married to for 35 years, right? So,
I love
and
it.
it's so romantic. But it started with me. I call it being on my own paper, right? So I think of my paper as where all my decisions are, like what time I go to bed and what I have for lunch and my attitude and all that. And he has his paper too. And when I was living on his paper, and my paper was like sort of stuck to the back of his paper, there I was so disempowered. I was frustrated all the time. I was miserable all the time. And that got to be kind of a habit. That got to be kind of something I was accustomed to. And it was it was actually a little hard to give it up, to get onto my own paper and ask myself questions like, oh, how do I feel? What do I desire? What would make me ridiculously happy today? And how can I give myself that? And then because I became more clear on my desires, and I also became less resentful. I looked less like this, and more like a happy woman, right? It was more becoming of a, yeah, happy, peaceful wife instead of a controlling, shrewish wife. Yeah, he went back to finding me an irresistible magnet like he had in the beginning. So it just
I
feels so
love
powerful.
that. I read something in your book actually that I loved. Let me just see where it was, because it kind of sums up what you're saying. And it says, you know, you said, Pearl, your question was, what does the empowered wife kind of mean? And I just love how you answered it. And here is another way I feel like um it's answered through your words. As women, we always have this power right from the start and right up to the end. And it's like a little different way of looking at it, but we're empowered from the beginning. We're empowered all the way up to the end. And we don't realize the power that we have to change the atmosphere of our marriage. I mean, sometimes we think, oh, it's all him, our marriage won't change until he, but we don't realize the power that we have. And so I loved that line.
And Laura, you talk about how we're the sexier sex. And
Yeah.
in your book, many times you say we are the sexier sex, and in a way that holds the power.
And can I read another
Yeah.
thing from her book? Just one little tiny thing. I love it. Relationships thrive or struggle, rise or fall, are easy or hard based on the wife and her skill level. You may have been taught, as I was, that marriage is 50-50 or even 100-100. But it wasn't until I became aware of my enormous power as a wife and how to use that power the way I did when we were dating. Don't you remember that power you felt and
Oh,
you
yeah.
knew you had when you were dating?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I felt it. And it wasn't until the way I did when we were dating that I started to enjoy the kind of playful, connected, sweet romance I'd had then and that I'd always craved. And so I love that. This showed me how much power I had again. And I
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah. It is. It's exciting to feel that power. You're right. That's part of why it's so so heady when you're dating, right? Like, ooh, I feel adored. I feel
Mhm.
that this man would do anything for me. And now that all of that is back, and that's what we see with wives, all around the world in every culture, that they want that back, first of all, and that they can have that. That it actually is more satisfying for everyone concerned
Yeah.
in the marriage.
You say on the front of your book, it's six surprising, this is a subtitle, six surprising secrets for attracting your husband's time, attention, and affection. Um, I have two questions. I don't know which one to start with, but I would think this. I've wondered this,
Yeah.
Laura. If so many of us wives have a natural inclination to want to control, to be like our husband's mom, I mean, the mom instinct comes
The mom
out,
and the
right?
teacher.
Yeah, to make them better themselves, just like you were. I mean, I've done it all. Why, if so many of us do it, and I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you because I could be wrong. Why is it such a strong instinct if it lands us up in such a bad place? Why do so many of us women share it?
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I think I know for me, it was quite surprising to when I tried to stop controlling my husband, what was underneath it was this incredible fear, right? Mountains of fear, terror.
Mm.
And they did a study at the University of Toronto and they found out that, and I'm glad you guys are both sitting down for this, women are more emotional than men. And so that was, that was well spent research money, right? But and so we're built with this. We have emotional brilliance, right? We know how to say what we know what we're feeling. We know how to say it, and the relationship really depends on that for success. And I just think that yeah, as a more fearful person who doesn't who isn't trained with the skill of with all six of the skills really, that fear is going to manifest as control again and again. And you think about like your mother on her worst day, right? Like really, what was she worried about? That you were going to get bad grades and ruin your future, right? Or you were going to be in a car with a boy or whatever. Like those were her worst moments. And it was out of her abundant desire for you to have the world, right? Because she loved you so much. But yet she was choosing her fear instead of her faith.
Mm.
And that's what I did too. I chose my fear that we would go broke, we would not be able to pay our bills. And I ran with that instead of my faith that my husband is a great provider. And
Mm.
funny thing, as soon as I I made a conscious decision to choose my faith, that I experienced him. He became that great provider.
Should we go there? Because
And
I would love to go there right now.
Can I just say, though,
Yeah.
interject and puff myself up that I must be an A student? Because that was my thought as I was dwelling upon my bed last night.
Yeah.
I think it's fear.
Yeah.
And fear, does it ever, unless we're being chased by a tiger, does fear ever do us good in our lives? Oh, it's a big robber. It's a big
Mm.
stealer of joy, you know? And and so I thought it's jolly fear, and you confirmed that.
Mm.
Star.
You're
A
amazing,
plus,
Pearl.
girl.
But I love that you went there, and I didn't know whether we would actually go here today because we've only got this hour that we could eat up 7 of your hours. But that you say one, I don't know if it's actually one of your intimacy skills, but it's one of your points in here is to give over that responsibility of the finances in the home. Ouch. It hasn't been a big problem for me. There's been other problems that have been my problems, but I know for many, they're just some women, some wives feel like they're just naturally more talented.
I can't believe you actually brought that up because I'm like, hey, let's just introduce people to Laura's concepts
I
today
know,
and
but
not
she
say
went
them
there
all
though.
because you will turn a lot of people away
I
if you
know,
actually say
but
give the finances
I
to
know,
over. And guess
but
what, Serene? Serene never cares about turning people away. She loves it. And
yeah.
and Laura's like, this is the last thing you do, guys. Don't worry about this at
Okay, well,
first.
let's not go there. We'll
Coming,
do it
but
another
now,
time.
no,
We're gonna
no,
have
now
it
you
back.
brought it up. Now you brought it up. You
Well, there
can't.
was
Well, I relate to Serena and I, are
yeah.
older sisters, and so we're both contrary this way, right? And we kind of like to get in people's craw a little bit
Oh,
and
she
upset
loves
them,
it.
I
Oh, I
Yeah.
think.
love to
Is it,
do that.
is,
But I
right?
had underlined it here in your book because it was the point. But And I even put good stuff and had it
Well,
in the
let
little
Laura
piece.
speak to
Yeah,
it.
you go speak to it. Please, would you speak to it? Because this is your words anyway.
Finances. Well, I guess for me, so just to go back to the dating model, right? Like I just remember when I met my husband and fell in love with him. One of our stories from when we were dating is I was so embarrassed because I had so much credit card debt when we first met. And I remember we got to the point where I had to tell him I had all this credit card debt and I was so nervous and scared to tell him. And he was like, "Well, how much is it?" And I was like, it was, $700, which doesn't sound like very much now, but to me at the time, I was like a full-time student. It just was so much money. And he was like, "Oh, well, how about if I pay that off?" And he did. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so nice." So from the beginning, and then he would take me out. He was working full time and I was a starving student. So he would take me out and I would cook for him or something. So there was such a culture of like him taking care of me financially. And I think that really contributed to us falling in love and
He was
feeling
your hero.
he was my hero. And so then soon as, as soon as we got married, I'm like, okay, or actually I think, it was even before that. I was like, okay, I'm going to take over. Okay, you have this much money. I jumped in and started trying to control it and I'm not very good at it, to be totally honest. I thought I was really good at it. I liked being in control of it because I felt more secure, but it was a false security. It was
Mm.
just, and then I was telling him like, "Hey, don't take any money out of the ATM, until Friday or whatever, or don't." I would say, "Don't buy a Coke." We go out to eat. I'd say, "Don't buy a Coke. It's a ripoff. It's like the highest profit margin for the restaurant." I'm telling a grown man, right? So this is adorable, right? This is not attractive. This is the opposite of being irresistible. This is being entirely resistible. And so for us, it made so,
Oh.
it was such a big leap, and yet it made so much sense. Like,
Mhm.
let's give the finances to the guy who's less emotional, and also the one who wants to take care of me, and I wanted to feel taken care of. The only thing standing between me and that was my fear that he would let me down. And I didn't want to live stuck in that. So for us, it just made tons of sense that I would. So I did relinquish control of the finances to him, and he, to this day, he pays all the bills and takes care of all the investments and retirement stuff and the taxes and the everything, and I am free of that, and I just love it. So that was a big deal for me, and I see where so many of my students come in. Oh, I have one student in particular who's just adorable. She's like, "Well, we don't have any conflict about the money, so I don't want to relinquish control of it. I control it. I think it's fine." I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. You're the expert on your life." And not controlling my husband kind of extends to, my students, unfortunately, too. I can't control them either. I'd like to sometimes, but I can't. So I said, "Oh, yeah, no worries." And she ended up deciding that because I think, probably the part where I said, "You don't have to." She's like, "Oh, I think I will now," just to surprise Laura. And so she did relinquish the finances, and she just described the conversation, just seeing the look on his face, like this look of astonishment and pride and happiness and relief that he announced it to their daughter. He's like, "Guess what? Mom's trusting me with the finances." And it was actually kind of a big deal in their relationship. It really contributed to greater intimacy and connection for them. So that's for
Yeah.
me is what's on the other side of that waterfall of fear that you can run through. And if intimacy and connection is what you're wanting, and if you are like me, wanting to feel desired and taken care of and special, that's what I have found is available on the other side of trusting your husband with the
And
finances.
it's
Me,
so
me,
true.
me.
But just before you
Okay.
let me for a second, just to finish it, because I went to where you didn't want me to go in the first podcast with Laura, but it felt like it flowed. But I love how you write in this book, and you're like, at first, you may think, he's not equipped or he doesn't have the same skills as you for the finances, but that you have found nearly every time that the more money is made into the family when the man takes the finances, because that's part of his motivation to take care of his family, and they thrive with that kind of uh inspiration, and it's amazing. And then you're also talking about the intimacy there, just
Yeah.
in your last point about how there's more attraction to your man many, many times because you haven't emasculated them. You're not really, when you take control of those big decisions, it kind of made them feel like a little schoolboy that you're handing out a little bit of pocket money to from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah. Or mom, right? Mom when
Yeah.
the
But since
men
you
are
went there,
not.
Serena, and I want to ask you this, Laura, we've spoken about some of your principles on our podcast before. And then, we have a big Facebook group of over 250,000 women, and they discuss things. And so they brought up, some woman said, oh, they talked about Laura Doyle. I'm a big fan. And other woman would say, I've never heard of it. What is this? And woman would say, well, you kind of stay on your own page and leave your husband to his page. And at first, hearing upon that, or maybe hearing, give your finances over, right?
Yeah.
There's this big pushback, like, what the heck? I mean, I have to be accountable, but my husband doesn't. Like, at first, if you don't read your
So
book and
unfair.
read
Yeah.
your story, and you're so self-depreciating, um, then I think at first, do you get this a lot? People think, oh my goodness, she wants women to be doormats and men don't have to be accountable.
Of
What the
course.
deal is this? I'm not going to follow that. Men
Yeah.
should be accountable too. What would you say to that for people
Oh,
that really don't know what your principles are about?
oh, I was very upset about this also. Why would I have to do all the work when, first of all, he was 99% of the problem and I was maybe like 1% of the problem. And so I was quite upset about this. But also, my husband wasn't putting in the work, right? He wasn't trying to fix our relationship. He was just like off in his man cave, like I think trying to avoid me, probably. Fair, in retrospect. And so what did that leave? What are my options, right? To either get divorced or to change what I could, right? And I always think of I think especially when you name a book The Surrendered Wife, people think you're in favor of women being doormats, wives
Yeah.
being doormats. But I think of surrendering actually as just a beautiful state of accepting the things that you can't, like the serenity prayer. Like if you're stuck in traffic, you might wish the traffic would move, but you can't make it move. But you could decide to use that time to listen to a podcast or to music you love, right? And you could end up being grateful for that time. And in the same way, just focusing on what had the power to change and trusting my husband to be the great man that I married. I didn't make a mistake. I thought I had because because of the way I had shown up so differently. He was responding to me very poorly. But once I did change that, that guy came back. The man who wooed me returned. So I think there's just so much to be said for uh, for this approach because first of all, we have the power as women. We really are the keepers of the relationship. It seems to me. It certainly was true in my relationship, but also I don't know that. There was any other way. There was no other way up this mountain than for me to do this quote unquote work, which ended up being much more relaxing. I'm not in charge of the finances. So I get to do the things that I love, the things that I'm called to do, like ending world divorce and writing New York Times bestseller books and have
You had
hosting a
creative
podcast
energy
that I love.
again, right?
Yes, I have creative energy again. So there was actually not more exhausting work to do this. I get to live in my purpose and do exciting and fun things a lot more than I used to. And I'm not the martyr that I once was, who, the kitchen elf who had to, juggle the bills and make sure, everything was going fine. It's quite the opposite.
And I love it. And I don't think you've never said that they're not accountable for their own
Oh
paper, their
no,
own stuff.
no.
No one's ever saying that. It's just that we can only be accountable for ourselves. That's the only thing that we really can be accountable for, and the only thing we really have the power to change. And when we just focus on that, things do seem to fall into some beautiful harmony. When we just get off of that's for them to be accountable. Like, great, do they need to change? Great. Well, let them work on that. But that's not something I'm meant to work on.
But
Yeah.
yeah, magic happens though. You're right. When you become more accountable, all of a sudden, students are always saying like, my husband apologized, done that in years. Like, oh, that's interesting, right? How did that happen?
Yeah.
Laura, what your book taught me, and I got it. I'll tell you how I came about your book. I was just scrolling on Facebook, and a friend said, "Oh, love this book." I thought, get it. Read it. I thought it was great. Put it on the shelf, and it didn't sink. My soil wasn't quite right at the time, but I thought it was good. I agreed, but I was at a busy season, read through it very quickly. And then someone was having marriage troubles like just several months ago. And I thought, that book, she needs that book, but I'm going to read it again first to see if it will relate, you know? And I read it again and it was like, oh, punch, punch, connect, connect. I was like, oh, this is so good. You know what it taught me though? Somehow it settled into my heart this time. My husband's need, the beautiful need and the beautiful symmetry that happens for him to be my hero, and how when I show him he's my hero, he pours back into me with this affection and with this love. And at first I was like, mad, why should I feed him this hero business? It's like a big, I mean, isn't that like, just puffing up his head? Why does he need that ego to be a hero? And then I thought, but Pearl, are you dismissing your own need to be cherished? Your need, this need I have to be cherished and to be like his princess and for him to adore me is so strong. You couldn't pull it out of me, Laura. And then I thought, that's the same thing in him, but it's different. He wants to be your hero, Pearl. Let him, show him, let him be that again.
And we can think to ourselves too, oh, how, immature and how, well, what's, their problem that they have to be hero and blah, blah, blah. But we can't take out of men the way they were created, like wired chemically and everything. I mean, we can try and complain about it. We'll get bad results. We can try and not go with the flow of it. We'll get bad results. But this is the way they were wired before the beginning of time. The way, like you said, well, we desire to want to be cherished and adored. They're wired that way. And if we just work with the way each other are wired, that magic happens.
It's an incredible system, isn't it? Such a complementary system that I want to be a prince hero. Like, perfect. I had no idea it was going to work out so beautifully. And I remember early on in my marriage not being a very good receiver of his heroism. Like we would, wake up in the morning and he'd say, "Oh, you're so beautiful," and I'd be like, "No, no, my hair's a mess. Like, stop it, shut up," right? And I couldn't receive compliments. Or he would buy me a beautiful gift, and I would take it back because it was too expensive. He's spending too much money on me, and I couldn't handle it. Right, so I had to grow my capacity to be a princess in order
Mm.
to really let him be the hero in our
Laura, I,
relationship.
I I have a little, see this ring here, this ring. Um, I told my husband after we were married, I don't like jewelry. I don't want jewelry. And he is a gift giver. It's one of his things he loves to do, but I stopped it because I thought, what a waste. All these years, we'll be married 30 years in 1 month. And then when I reread your book, I'm like, Pearl, you stopped your man from being a hero all those years in this one way of giving you gifts. You're like, I don't need that. I'm a simple person.
He stopped giving it to you and giving it to his daughters,
Yeah.
right? He'd buy them jewelry because he loved to buy jewelry for the
So
woman
then
in
we
his
went on a
life.
cruise and we were on an island and we were looking at, these little rings and he's like, well, you wouldn't want that. And I was like, well, actually, I would. I would. And he's like, you would want that? I'm like, yeah, it's like a little $60 ring, but it was just the moment and he bought it for me. And they were sitting on this tour bus going home and he kept kissing my hand. Like, and he brought it up to his lips and he's like, he was the one thanking me. It was just this
Yeah,
moment, like he was my
yeah,
hero and I was receiving. I was like you, I could never accept beautiful. Like he'd say, you're beautiful. I think he stopped saying it after a while because I'd always say, what? No, I'm not. Like you. But now I'm learning to say thank you. And he feels like a hero when I say thank you. Ah, I want to say thank you for that
Yeah.
to
yes,
you.
No, it's so
yes,
beautiful. It's so
right.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's almost like we owe him an apology for not receiving all those
Yes.
years. Yeah, I felt that way
It's
too.
such a,
Beautiful
it's part of
story.
your, it's one of your intimacy skills, learning how to be a receiver. And I just feel like it's so huge. And you go on about how the husbands, that it's in them to want to give and want to shower us with things that make us happy. But if they don't, it's because they've been trained out of it. And so many times, you'll say, some woman will say, my husband never buys me a Christmas gift. I have to buy my own. Come to find out, the first Christmas they were ever married, she's like, oh, that wasn't the right one. From now on, she would just buy herself something earlier in December and say, don't worry about a Christmas gift. I already took care of it for you.
Yeah,
And that was the
yeah,
husband who never brought her a Christmas gift because she had trained him.
Yeah, we're always teaching people how to treat us, and sometimes we don't realize the impression that we've left. And Pearl, I just love the way you describe this deep need to be cherished. It's just in you. There's nothing, I mean, to deny it is just painful. And that's true for me too. And I find that it does seem to be part of how women are made, that we are born with this desire to be desired. And husbands, men are just more than willing to do that if we'll let them.
I love what the whole thing we're talking about is it's opposite of the advice that most people give about marriage. And you know, in the beginning of your book, you have like a true or false myth or true thing, and it's all about the normal things you hear out in our culture, or we've been hearing for years about how to make a good marriage work, and you're like true or false. And when you go flip the side over and you read your answers, it's just amazing how we've been really sold a false bill of goods. We've been taught the wrong stuff, you know, and we get to marriage and we've been actually taught the things that break up marriage. And
Yeah.
I kind of want to mention just some of these things. I underlined some of them because I just thought they were just so amazing. Hmm. But tell a joke, bro.
Tell the truth. No, I've got a lot of questions, but
Ask a
I don't want to take
question.
too much. I want to hear from you,
I
Laura.
know.
You know, you say, a man is attracted to a happy wife.
Yeah.
Happiness. What do you call us? Goddess of light, and what is that?
Fun.
Goddess
Goddess
of
of fun
light
and
and
light.
fun.
Here,
Oh my
girl, fun and
goodness, that
light.
really
Yeah.
spoke to me. That I got a bit of conviction over that because I'm very sometimes, with my workload as authors,
Mhm.
and running
Yeah.
businesses,
Yeah.
can get very
Yeah.
serious and very opposite of goddess of fun and light.
Yes.
But well, I mean, obviously happiness is good for us, but why should we be the jolly well goddesses of fun and light, Laura? What does that do for us in our relationship?
Well, I mean, for one thing, I know for me, when I was kind of stuck in being a martyr in my marriage,
Mother.
I was very miserable. I was so unhappy. Every day I had to complain that I was focused on things that weren't going the right way. And I thought that the more I complained and let him know like this wasn't acceptable. Yeah, yes, you did the dishes, but you didn't wipe off the counter, so I cannot smile until, I approve of the job you've done. And that just meant I had a scally face on all day. And like I said, I kind of attached to being miserable. It felt like I was giving up a precious family heirloom to stop being miserable at some point.
Yeah.
And then, but until I decided to go back, you know, I was the girl of fun and light, right? I was happy, smiling, dancing. He fell in love with my laugh. I remember, early on he would say, "Oh, we lived in the apartments next door to each other. And I I was already halfway in love with you." Before so
Oh,
so
I
this I
love
knew was
that.
attractive, and I would rather be happy anyway than to be miserable. And so it was really who I was. I think we all have that inner just want to have fun girl, like Cyndi Lauper's profound anthem, right? Girls really do just want to have fun. And when I'm doing that, marriage just flows so easily. Even my business flows more easily too when I remember that I love to laugh.
Do you know, I so relate to that because in my marriage, I felt like if I put enough martyr misery on my face, it'll be a good hint to my husband that
Yeah,
I need the help, right? That'll be the way
yeah,
I can tell him that I need more like assistance. But what I realized, but really didn't realize till I read your book, was that they don't get hints by misery. They just want to go away from us a little bit, like to get a little bit of
yeah,
breath of fresh air in the corner. Because I would bring the groceries home, you know, and we have a lot of children. So there's a lot of groceries. So it's a big deal. It's like moving house to bring the groceries in. Okay. So like it's a big deal. And I would huff and puff and bring it in and I would be like put on the face that everything was so heavy and put on the big sigh and be like, well, I've already gone and gotten all of this food and now I'm bringing it in by myself and oh, I'm just so tired. Then after this I'll have to put it away and then make dinner and blah 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 blah.
yeah.
High sigh, huff puff, misery, and he'd be just there reading his book and not wanting to look up. He never got the hint because
Never
why would
did.
he want to
No.
join me in my misery, right? It
Right.
didn't sound like a fun thing to do. Um, and then I read a testimony of something that happened just like what happened to me is I just decided to one day when he was outside and saw me bringing it in and he just chose to help. And I told him that that was such a help to me and I smiled about it and it was a positive feeling he got from helping. That was what he needed. The misery never got help. Like every time I'm miserable and act like I've got so much going on, oh, please, you never help me kind of thing. Never did he get the hint. Never. He just wanted to run away. Yeah. So that you taught me that because I saw that testimonies that totally were mirror images of what I'd been through in here. And it's like, yeah, they don't want to be around miserable faces and sighing and huffing and puffing. They just would rather be off reading, face behind the newspaper.
Back in the old
Yeah. And I didn't even want to be around myself when I was miserable and complaining too, right? Like it's much more pleasant
Oh.
to hear my voice now than it was when I was.
Well, then, Laura, what about, I mean, you talk about, what do you talk about duct tape over your lips? We've got so much to say, and so much of our marriage could be made better, enhanced by actually not saying it. And then not expressing what we're feeling or not putting the frown on. Is part of this just faking it, Laura? Faking it till we make it? I'd love you to address that.
Yeah, so I know for me, sometimes John will be describing a challenge he's having, and I'll think, oh, I know the answer. Me. I can tell you how to solve this challenge, like a kid in school, right? And I want to tell him what to do. I just want to solve the situation. And that isn't always the best idea. Like I have an opinion. Of course, I always have the right to share it. My opinion counts and all that. I'm well educated, feminist and all that. So I know all that. But sometimes I just really value now that I have the ability to put the imaginary duct tape over my mouth and just listen to my husband. And I was a communications major, so I knew I was really good at communicating. And what I meant by communicating was just beating him to death with my words, just repeating them, my words until he
Ouch,
agreed
that's
with them.
me. That's
Yeah.
totally me.
Right. But actually, the key to really becoming a great conversationalist, a great communicator, was learning this particular cheat phrase that I lean on heavily. I put on the duct tape, and then I say these three words. He'll be talking, and I'll just say, "I hear you." Just that. I hear you. It doesn't mean I agree. It doesn't mean I disagree. I'm not telling him what he should do, but I am bearing witness to the words of the man that is my beloved, right? That is one of the most important things to me is to be able to have this deep conversation with him where he feels safe to share with me. And I just love what comes out in that emotional safety that I can create that way versus just jumping in with a solution and not really listening to what he's saying, just trying to move past that and get to the part where I get to talk, right?
Mm.
So for me, duct tape has been, or sometimes I'll have the urge will fly through my head to say something that I know is disrespectful. And before I didn't even know it was disrespectful, and that would just come flying out of my mouth because that's how I was. But now I'll be able to have the thought. I'll be able to hold a thought and think, would that serve my goal to have intimacy and connection in my marriage? To say it out loud, and the answer is definitely not, and I'm pretty clear on that. Then I will make the decision not to say it sometimes. Sometimes I still say things that are disrespectful, you guys. I wish I could say I'm perfect. I just had to apologize not that long ago for for numerous disrespectful things. But it's just wonderful to have the option. It feels like a superpower to decide, no, I'd rather have the intimacy than to say this little thing that's just flying through my brain right now that's kind of inconsequential.
Because you were empowered, right? And that's the whole meaning of empowered to me. It's not being a doormat. It's being like beforehand, you didn't even have the knowledge to be able to make the choice. Now you've got this knowledge. You have the power to choose one way or the other, one way that's really going to benefit you, or one way that might make you feel good for a second and then be in misery.
Do you know what I found? And my husband is a strong silent type, not a man of many words, a man of few words. But and I think this is the case with many women. Obviously, some men speak more than others, but I feel like the more I had to say on certain subjects where I knew I was right,
Yes.
the less he would say, and the less he would say overall. And I felt, since I read your book and I put some invisible duct tape on and I haven't said some things, the more he has said to me, the more he has shared about his feelings, his thoughts. It's just, he's still a quiet guy, but it just comes out of him. He feels safer. I didn't even know I was that scary, but I was.
I'm scary still, and I'm scary probably in many areas, but there's one area I'm very scary in. And can I be on your counseling couch for 2 minutes
Yeah.
and just ask your incredible wisdom? Okay, so Pearl and I run this health business. Okay, so we teach people how to eat healthy and how to have transformations through the things that they eat. So this is my area of problem because we know so much more than our
We
husbands
really
on this
know a
subject,
lot.
right?
So much more.
Okay, so my
So much
husband's
more.
fantastic. He's incredible, but he got some health issues that could serve him well with a food change. Now, he has been changing. It's great, but he's going to his own doctors because that's great because he didn't want me talking through my doctors about him. So he's got his own little situation. It's so fantastic, but they want him to lose 15 pounds. He looks great and wonderful, but just to
He's already lost like 30.
yeah,
Yeah.
but just they want him to just to be in the perfect BMI. He'll do sometimes things and he's paying good money to these doctors. So sometimes I'm like, I really need to help him out because he's wasting his money paying for them if he's going to do certain things that I know are going to put 15 pounds on, not take 15 pounds off. So through your book, I know I shouldn't say them. And my brain is saying, don't say those things, Serene. You'll ruin your intimacy. And, because that's so much more important. But then my brain will be like, but I know I have the knowledge to help him. What do I do? Because
Help us, Laura.
Yes,
that's where I
absolutely.
really struggle most of all is with in the health knowledge. I feel like,
Oh, yeah.
bless his soul.
It's infuriating
But
sometimes,
he's
isn't
like,
it?
he always says, so you're my teacher. So I know it wrecks us. I know it
Oh,
does.
let her teach us.
Thank you, please.
Well, I mean, I love this, and every woman finds herself in this situation like every day, pretty much, really, with her husbands. So, and I think I know for me, um, it was interesting to find out that when I was really in his energy, let's just say, like even if I had controlling energy, even if I wasn't saying anything, but I just was sort of maybe making sideways glances at those old t-shirts that I thought he should throw out or something like that. That nothing could move. Everything kind of stuck. But if as soon as I really got myself out of that, as soon as I was really like, okay, who cares about his t-shirts? What do I need to clean out of my own closet, or or what, how can I arrange a volleyball game today so I can get out and have some endorphins? That was when he would all of a sudden say things like, I decided I'm going to throw out some of these old t-shirts. I would just be like, oh my gosh, like what just happened? It was really interesting that my energy being in his space would kind of suck up, it would block him. So I guess one of my questions for you is do you really have any power, even if you did communicate the knowledge to him, do you really have any power to help him lose this 15 pounds?
No, probably not. And then the thought goes into my head, who can I tell that can tell him
Yeah,
if it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
coming from me? Because
yeah.
knowledge is power. This is what I think in
Yes,
my
it
head. I'm like,
is.
should I tell so and so? And he can accidentally tell him this information.
Well,
See, it's
yeah, it's
terrible.
so
It's so
frustrating.
conniving. It's so
No, but it's
manipulative. I want
frustrating
it
to
out
watch.
of me.
It's frustrating to watch your husband go down what is the wrong road. You could help him.
Well,
So,
he's so wonderful and he's gotten down the right way road so far. But then I feel like I could help him cross the finish.
oh, Serene, what if we did a spouse fulfilling prophecy for your husband? That
There
might
you
be fun.
go. I
Yes.
loved
How
that.
about
That's so
that?
true. Yes,
So
you have
right
to
now
buy
your
the book
spouse
to know
fulfilling
about that.
prophecy is he's he's not doing the right things for his health, I guess. Is that fair to say?
No, he's doing so many wonderful things for his health, more than I could have ever dreamed of. But it's just like little tidbits of information. I think that,
He
like,
could tweak things. He's not being tweaked enough. That's her
yeah,
current.
no, he's
Okay.
better than 99.9% of people, women and men, on health. Like, he's doing amazing. Like, he really has had transformation and he's owning it for himself. And it's fantastic. And a lot of that was me getting off of his page. But,
Wow. Good job,
but
Serene. Incredible.
But I get this. This is my only thing I still cling on to so bad that the tweaking. Oh, I could tweak that and I could tweak that. And I get finicky about the things, how I could help him cross the
Yeah.
finish line. Because that's
Yeah.
what Pearl and I do for a living is we help people tweak to their finish lines.
Absolutely.
It's
And
terrible for him.
oh gosh, it sounds enormously stressful. It would just take infinite patience to stand by and not contribute this area of your expertise. This is your specialty. So I'm very impressed that you are well, first of all, I really hear he's been very successful with with losing a lot of weight and taking care of his health. And I give you a lot of credit for that because it
No,
sounds like
it's all him, really.
it's all him. Okay, well, so it sounds like your desired spouse fulfilling prophecy is And I hear you saying it already, is he's doing a terrific job taking care of his health. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah, he is.
Yes.
I just can't stop myself from
Well, stop
energetically looking
saying
at the
that,
corn
and maybe
chips. Like,
maybe you're self-fulfilling your own prophecy,
that's
saying, "I can't
true.
stop."
That's true. That's true.
Oh,
Maybe
oh yeah. Yeah.
I'll hold off though.
Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah.
corn chips that it says bison. And I know, well, that won't help you lose that last 15, but I'll say nothing, but my eyes will keep darting to
You
the plate to see how many corn chips are in the bowl and things like
You,
that.
you also you always get to decide. Like I always say, I'm never going to be a perfect surrendered wife or empowered wife, right? I'm always going to have moments where I think like, oh, I really know the answer and I want to say it. And so, I mean, I always think, control and intimacy are opposites. If I want the intimacy, I got to let go of the control. If I want the control, I'm
I
going to
want
have
the
to give
intimacy.
up
So
the
I'm
intimacy.
going to have a
But
self-fulfilling prophecy to be a wife that can not give give those
can
little tidbits of
can just
information.
respect her husband's process with his wait. But all that to say though, I mean, you really do get to decide. You really are the expert. It may be that you want to say, I can't. Have you really never said some of the information? I feel like information too is a little different than control.
Yes, no, no,
you've
see,
definitely
I've
said the
said
information.
it, but you see, I think it
You
might have
said it.
gone in and out, So that's the problem.
I mean, for both of our husbands, and they're great husbands, but
The
living
brilliant
with
husband.
women who do this for a living and are so passionate about health, I kind of in the same deal as
That would be our
Serene.
area of most struggle, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
I would say getting off their own health page and staying on our own health page, for us. But
Oh
I feel like
yeah,
we're making little improvements,
And this book
yeah,
has really helped us. And do you know what's helped us? And I really want to talk about it, is
We've got like
having,
3 more minutes.
but having a a group, like you said, you were doing great and then you weren't doing great, and you realized you needed to be surrounded by a group of women who weren't out for you but out for your marriage, that
yeah,
really were looking out for your marriage, because that's really looking out for you, right? Because that's going to be your
yes,
happiness. But Pearl and I, having read the same book, and really it's so fantastic to be able to be that encouragement for one another, because she'll look at me sometimes and say, you're really being empowered, like sarcastically, but we can kind of encourage each other. And I think, can you talk a little bit about that too? You did already, but I love how you've got this
Yeah, talk about your whole coaching
coaching.
program and
Yeah.
how that
oh
empowers women to
yeah.
be empowered.
I love what you're saying because I just remember I remember a moment when I had that first little support group in my house and I wanted to say something that I knew was going to be disrespectful to John, my husband. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I do that, I'm going to be such a hypocrite because I just told so and so not to do that. And it really just kind of held me tight. And that's when I really got the sustained better marriage that I was looking for, and it became shiny and amazing. And so yeah, women have written to me from all over the world asking for more support with implementing the skills. And so I decided I got really overwhelmed actually. First I ran away and like went to bed. I was like, I've written the book, just read the book, it's all in there. And I
Yeah.
knew that wasn't even enough for me to do it. So I started training coaches, and now we have hundreds of really incredible experts on the six intimacy skills who have used them to fix their own struggling marriages. So
Mm.
they're not on high telling you what you should do. They're saying, you know what, here's what was happening for me, and this is what I did. And some of them just blow my mind because they have recovered from like my husband left, he's living with the other woman. He
Oh, wow.
said, there's no hope for us. We're going to get divorced, and they've gotten it all back better than new. So they have incredible stories. And I remember being scared that I couldn't help them when they first arrived. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if the skills are going to work for that. And of course they did. So it's just been, or like even like mental illnesses, narcissists, addiction. We've had, alcohol, husbands with alcoholism, where, I had a guy come on my podcast and say, well, my wife trained to become a coach, and I've been sober for 18 months now because of
Wow.
things like that. So
Oh,
it's kind of crazy. So yeah, so we have the Ridiculously Happy Wife uh, coaching program is our flagship program, where women come in, and it just is it's wonderful. It's
but how
wonderful.
powerful is that? And Pearl, I'm going to shut up because I know you want to talk. But it's so powerful because you say in the beginning of your book, Marriage counselors who just have a diploma on the wall, that is not information to help a marriage. It's testimony. It's being gone through it and learning the skills to get you to the other side. That is what can help you
Yeah,
transform
I
your
mean, when I
marriage.
listen to your podcast, Laura, I weep. I weep when I hear the stories because it's real life. These women, marriages, I think I could shiny up my marriage here and there, but I have gone through nothing compared to some of these stories.
Yes.
Men coming back divorced after many, many years and then coming back together. So many things, like you said. It's so powerful.
And it's even shocked you because I remember
Oh,
you
yeah.
saying too in this revised book that at first in your first book, you're like, well, this is not for bad men. It's only for good men who are
Yeah.
just a little jerky from time
Yeah.
to time.
Yeah.
But you're like, I don't want to tell you what to do or go back to a dangerous marriage because that's not what but you were like,
Right. I'm
but if you
scared.
have faith, I've seen it work
Yeah.
for even
Yeah.
really messed up men. So if you have faith, I'll have faith for you. Here you go.
Yeah. I'm like, let me just not tell you what to do because that's never really worked out for me. Right. So yeah, there are so many women who are working so hard already trying to fix their marriages. And who am I to say, oh, yeah, the six intimacy skills won't work for you? Like, that was ridiculous. So, yeah, I had to do that mea culpa in the book and really take that back because it was a shame, right? That I was too afraid. I chose my fear instead of my faith when I had written that. But now, yeah, women come on the podcast and blow my mind. They talk about they had domestic violence. They had to call 911. And they're
Oh,
like, yeah, now my marriage is better than ever. And I'm all like, wow.
Yeah.
Like I weep too. I weep too when they tell their stories.
Would you
So inspiring.
where do people go? Just like maybe this is the first I've heard of and
Oh, I made a special thing for you guys, just for
okay.
you. Okay. So it's because I knew you had a big audience of women that were going to be excited about this. So we made a special page it's at lauradoyle.org/trim
yay.
for
Great.
and we put all the goodies there. So the Adored Wife Roadmap is there. The recommended podcasts. There's lots of free goodies at lauradoyle.org
That's fun. I didn't even know
slash
I
that.
love
trim.
that. And I want to encourage our listeners, if you're in a broken marriage or a miserable marriage, this is for you, but it's for you too. If you just want to shiny your marriage up,
Mm.
maybe you don't know how fantastic it can be. If it's just like easy sailing, but not like fireworks, this can bring the fireworks
Yeah. I
back.
mean, I'm just looking at my ring. I touch it every day. I've worn one piece of jewelry my whole marriage. That was my wedding ring, and I said, but I'm a simple woman. And now he keeps talking about the next thing he's going to buy me. And to this day, I'm still not a jewelry person, but what it means to me, how he thinks about that. And I look at this, it's so much more than a little piece of silver and this blue stone.
And we love to work
It,
out. Pearl and I love to work out. And so Pearl called me the other day. She's like, I am so empowered. I am so empowered. My husband's buying me this gym equipment I've wanted for so long. All I had to say is, oh, darling, I'd really love this. And all of a sudden, it's on order.
yeah.
This
Oh
thing
my gosh, she learned the
works.
magic words.
I was
Like if there's
hinting around the place, and then I thought, no, Laura would say, tell him what you would love. I said, I would love it. He's like, you mean you would really love it? I said, that's what I would love. And he's like, okay, show me where to
you
buy
got
it.
it. Oh
But
my
she'd hinted around for months and
Oh,
months and months.
hinted.
Nothing.
I said,
Right,
Serene
nothing,
has
nothing.
no, and I kept saying, Serene has one.
Did you try
Yeah.
complaining about how you don't have one? Because
No,
that
no,
never
because I'd
works.
read your book, so I
Okay,
wasn't
okay,
there, but I was
okay.
still in hinting stage. But when I actually went there, yeah, that's coming to my home gym. So thank you for
Oh
that,
my
Laura.
gosh,
Thank you
I
for that.
love it. Congratulations, Pearl. You learned the magic phrase, and that is like the one thing I just feel like every woman needs to know is how to express your desires in a way that inspires. And you nailed
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I love it. One more quick thing, and I love it.
Oh,
You
we're
talk
above
about,
an hour.
yeah, but you talk about how desire is so much better than complaining and gets such better results. Because really,
Yes.
what a complaint is a desire not shared properly.
It's a
Because
yeah, it's a lazy
instead of
desire.
saying,
Yeah,
"Hey, I'd love some help in the kitchen," be like, "I don't get any help and since when?" Yeah, like I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's the
yeah,
same thing, really,
yeah.
but it's just not spoken with any inspiration for
We
them.
don't have enough time. We could do a whole another podcast asking you about martyr syndrome that so many
Oh,
do.
it's
But
so
that's
huge.
another one, Laura. I mean, one day you might be so gracious to come back, but we want to thank you for your time. I know you're a busy woman, and
Yes.
Oh,
thank you
this
so much.
this was such a delight. I just loved hearing both of your stories about how using the skills has made your marriages more shiny and amazing too. So, thank you so much for the honor of being on your show.